Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror mystery films from 2025, titled Until Dawn. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a woman named Melanie in an underground tunnel, frantically fleeing from an unseen creature. After multiple desperate attempts, she finally claws her way to the surface, and gasps in relief. But to her horror,
No, I can't die again. No, please!
The scene then cuts to a group of friends, Clover, her ex, Max, Megan, and a couple, Nina and Abe, driving down a desolate road. Later, the group watches a video message from Melanie, who turns out to be Clover's sister. Melanie apologizes for not dealing with their mother's death well, and for fleeing the house. Surprisingly, the group is actually in the same gas station, where they are desperately searching for Melanie, who has been missing for a year. Afterward, Clover steps into the store, and shows the owner a picture of her sister, asking if he's seen her. But the man reveals that she's not the first to come searching for missing loved ones, and people often vanish in a town up ahead called Clover Valley. Upon hearing this, a hopeful Clover immediately tells her friends she might know where Melanie is. The group then drives toward Clover Valley as a heavy rain and thunderstorm fall around them. However, they soon realize they are completely lost, and spinning in endless circles with no clear path. They eventually stop in front of a visitor center, where they are shocked by a dark cloud hanging over it. Though the storm rages wildly all around, the building stands eerily untouched and dry. There's no signal, and Megan, who's the self-proclaimed psychic, says she senses something bad. Next, Abe, Nina, and Megan head inside the house, which looks abandoned, and notice a shady hourglass. While exploring, Nina finds a guest registry book, and Abe comes across a wall covered with missing people's posters that spooks him. Meanwhile, Clover, who's still outside, suddenly hears her sister calling her name, and also spots a figure in the distance. She heads toward the rainstorm, and Max also follows her. But Clover soon gets lost in the rain, while Max desperately shouts after her. Inside, Nina writes her name in the guest registry, while Abe is stunned as he notices Melanie's missing poster among the others. Moments later, Max catches up to Clover and pulls her out beyond the rain wall, and the two proceed to enter the visitor center. Inside, Nina studies the registry book, and shockingly notices multiple guests' names written 13 times, including Melanie's, and the handwriting becomes increasingly distorted and messy each time. Once the group is reunited, they start sharing what they saw earlier. They feel uneasy about the place, but Clover remains hopeful and insists she heard Melanie calling through the rain. Just then, Nina notices the hourglass in the room has flipped over, though no one recalls touching it. Here, they hear strange noises echo in the distance. The group rushes outside, and sees that their truck has been moved to the rainy side, and they assume someone's trying to steal their vehicle. Feeling scared, Abe and Nina decide to keep their eyes on the truck, while the others head off to find a phone. They soon arrive in the basement, and Max is shocked to discover there's a window underground. Clover then finds an old phone, but it's not working. There's also a radio, and they try to contact someone, but to no avail. Upstairs, Nina and Abe hear a sound coming from a nearby room, so Abe goes to check it out alone. But he doesn't return for a while, and when Nina hears the noise again, she decides to investigate. She enters a room. But then she finds this.
Is that Nina?
Hearing Nina scream, Max peers toward the basement door, and is horrified to see Nina's lifeless body with the killer looming over her. He notices Max's presence, so Max runs away and urges the girls to hide quickly. Moments later, the killer arrives at the basement, so Max grabs a chair and swings it at him, but it barely phases the strong guy. Instead, he stabs Max in the eye, resulting in his immediate death. Meanwhile, Clover and Megan watch everything from their hiding spot with tears streaming down their faces. The killer is now in the room where the girls are hiding, so Clover secretly grabs a knife from a nearby table. Unfortunately, the killer soon finds Megan hiding in the closet, drags her by the legs, and savagely beats her to death. Witnessing the horror, a desperate Clover plunges the knife into his back, but it doesn't even affect him, prompting her to run away. She's later seen running into the woods, but suddenly freezes when she spots a figure that looks like her sister. Just then, the killer plunges a scythe into her back, ending her life as well. At this point, the movie takes a chilling turn when, all of a sudden, the hourglass reverses, and everything resets. The group members are shockingly alive, and find themselves back at the very start of the night before the nightmare began. Confusion and dread grips them as they struggle to make sense of what just happened. As if that wasn't enough, Abe reveals that their faces have been added to the missing poster wall. As the group debates their chances of escape, Megan begins feeling sick, and claims tonight is far worse than before. Just then, her body convulses, and she unleashes a piercing shriek that shatters every light in the house. The group hurries to turn on their flashlights, only to realize that Megan has mysteriously vanished. Moments later, Clover hears a faint sound, and leads the group to the room covered in missing posters. They indeed find Megan there, floating in a trance-like state and muttering unclear words. She begins pointing at each poster and speaking in different voices. The group then realizes she has become a vessel for the missing souls, who are pleading for help through her. Soon, Megan snaps her neck violently and collapses dead. The terrified group scrambles to decide what to do, right when a loud banging echoes at the front door. Abe peeks outside and sees no one, but then, Melanie begins speaking from the other side, demanding that they let her in. This sends Clover into a state of panic, and despite her friend's desperate pleas to stop her, she ends up opening the door. But no one is outside. Instead, a whole house, which wasn't there before, now looms in front of them. Suddenly, Clover is thrown into the air by an invisible force, while her friends remain trapped inside the visitor center. She is dragged towards the new house, and then violently hauled inside it as the door slams shut behind her. Meanwhile, Max worries for Clover and tries to chase after her, but the others stop him as it's too risky. Despite this, a frustrated Max curses his friends before storming out alone. Meanwhile, Clover regains consciousness in a dark room, surrounded by eerie mannequins wearing deformed masks. She looks around, and spots an old woman connected to an oxygen mask, sitting silently in front of a TV. When Clover tries to leave, the woman, in a sinister voice, says, "There's only one way out, you either survive the night or become part of it." She turns out to be a witch, and suddenly forces Clover to breathe through her mask. The witch then starts to unexpectedly crumble away as Clover begins to get possessed. Moments later, Max arrives at the house, while Abe and Nina jump into their truck. Nina is anxious about abandoning her friends, but Abe doesn't care and locks the doors before driving through the rain again. However, they don't go very far as an enormous creature suddenly blocks their path, forcing them to retreat. A panicked Nina then tries to open her door, but freezes in shock when she realizes her boyfriend has been killed, and this is when the masked man appears again. Elsewhere, Max is desperately looking for Clover, and arrives at one of the rooms, which is filled with lots of creepy dolls. And then this happens.
Oh, fuck! Clover?
The possessed Clover then heads toward the visitor center, but the masked killer driving the truck runs her over and kills her. Again, we are taken to the next loop, where the group starts questioning if this will keep happening. The group then barricades the front door, and locks themselves in the bathroom, hoping to survive the night and wait until dawn. Abe drinks the tap water from the sink, and asks if anyone else wants some. Everyone accepts the water, as they are all completely drained from the nightmare unfolding around them. Afterward, Clover tells the group about what the witch said, during which Abe suddenly begins coughing up blood, which he tries to hide. But the coughing worsens until it is uncontrollable, and in a shocking turn of events, his body violently explodes, splattering everyone with blood. A horrified Nina runs to the sink, but Megan tells her not to drink the water, but it's too late, as Nina also explodes. Horrified, the remaining survivors flee the bathroom, but it doesn't take long for Megan to violently burst as well. Seeing this, a trembling Clover begs Max to kill her to restart the loop and come up with a plan. However, he's unable to go through with it.
I can't let you know. I'm sorry.
Clover collapses to the ground, gasping, when a man approaches while whistling eerily. She notices that it's the same gas station attendant. He says she almost made it, but she can't survive by sitting still. Clover also explodes at this point, right before the hourglass flips over. In the next loop, Megan's hair begins rapidly falling out, and she notices that she's growing extra teeth. This time, the group decides to investigate the history of Clover Valley and begins digging through old files in the basement. Here they're stunned to learn that the gas attendant is actually a doctor named Alan Hill. It turns out that 20 years ago, a catastrophic mine collapse killed more than 1,100 people in the area. The miners had dug too deep, unleashing devastation and causing much of the town to be swallowed by the earth. Dr. Hill, who's a specialist in trauma recovery, was brought in by the state to help the surviving townspeople. This explains the visitor center's bizarre architecture, with its windows oddly located below ground level. At this point, Nina sees a door in the basement and thinks maybe it's a way out, but it's a very dark tunnel, prompting her to get scared and close the door. The group then plays a VHS tape they found, which features a man locked in a room, crying out in pain, unable to understand why he keeps coming back alive. Dr. Hill narrates that he is experimenting on the fragile mental and emotional state of the disaster survivors. He notes that the patient shows alarming signs of starvation and muscle atrophy, but most disturbingly, overwhelming fear and anxiety, crushing feelings of hopelessness. After 13 days of being trapped, the victim begins transforming into a monstrous creature known as a Wendigo, who is always hungry. At this moment, Dr. Hill connects to the group via radio and says, "Now you're getting it." An undeterred Clover demands that he let them go, but Hill reveals that one has to die, so the other 4 can leave without any trouble. But Clover refuses to sacrifice anyone, and tells Hill that she wants to meet him face to face. The unhinged doctor agrees, and claims that he's in the woods with Melanie, and only Clover is allowed to come, not her friends. The others try to stop Clover, but Abe supports her decision, and she ends up leaving. Afterward, the group accuses Abe of being selfish for letting Clover go. Max suggests they should either find her or kill themselves to restart the loop, but Abe disagrees. He reminds them that Clover already tried to unalive herself twice in the past year, so it doesn't really matter if she dies, so an enraged Nina stabs him with a pickaxe to injure him. She then orders Max and Megan to go after Clover. Elsewhere, Clover is in the woods when she suddenly falls into a hidden trap. A chain snaps around her leg and yanks her off the ground, dragging her deep into the forest. Back at the visitor center, Nina and Abe have an emotional conversation about their dire situation. But it is cut short when in another scene, Max and Megan are trying to track Clover through the dense woods, but are suddenly approached by a lurking Wendigo. The duo runs for their lives, but Megan stumbles and lands hard on the glass roof of a buried house. As the fragile surface begins to crack, Max rushes to help her, but the Wendigo reappears, and the glass finally gives way, sending both him and Megan crashing below. Wendigo then drags Megan deep into the basement. After some time, Max finally reunites with Clover, and helps her out of the trap. But they are soon attacked by a Wendigo, which turns out to be none other than Melanie. The two run away and hide, where an emotional Clover says she messed up, and hands him a shard of glass to kill her. He then reluctantly slits her throat, and drinks the contaminated water afterward. Soon, the Wendigo Melanie appears, but before she can attack Max, he explodes in front of her. In the next loop, things start to get worse, as deformities begin to appear on Abe's body, signaling the start of his transformation into a Wendigo. Clover then asks how many nights it's been, and Nina surprisingly reveals that it is the 13th night, according to the registry book. Even worse, no one has ever survived more than 13 nights before. The group then peeks out the window, and notices that an entire cluster of houses has suddenly appeared all around them. Afterward, they notice that Megan is nowhere in sight, so they urgently check Abe's phone, where he's been recording everything. Each clip chillingly reveals how the group met their fate, from flesh-eating maggot attacks, to Wendigos, to the mysterious masked man. One recording shows Dr. Hill inspecting the bodies before leaving the room. The final video was filmed by Megan, who had been secretly following Hill, desperate to find a way off the cursed place. At this moment, they suddenly hear the sound of an air raid, and upon peeking outside, they notice several Wendigos coming for them. The group panics and decides to go through the dark pathway from their basement to look for Megan. After arming themselves, they walk through the dark tunnel, where they encounter a bunch of Wendigos. After the frantic chase, they somehow manage to escape from the creatures unharmed, and arrive in a buried house of the old town. But unfortunately, a masked man shows up to attack them, so Max urges Clover to leave while they confront the attacker. Clover agrees and leaves, but upon walking a while, she comes across the Wendigo Melanie. The creature tries to attack her, and Clover realizes this is no longer her sister, so she pushes her onto an iron on the floor, killing her instantly. She then tells Melanie that she loves her before heading off. On the other hand, Max, Abe, and Nina finally manage to defeat the strong masked man, and crush his head with a sledgehammer. Elsewhere, Clover continues her journey, and soon reaches a sanatorium, where she notices Megan trapped in a room with a Wendigo, who is chained. The room is locked, so Clover heads off to find the key, and comes across Dr. Hill's office, which is full of monitoring cameras. At this moment, Dr. Hill arrives while drinking coffee and places his mug on the table. He then tells Clover she has been one of his most intriguing and interesting patients, as she suffers from severe depression, extreme anxiety, and has already tried to unalive herself twice. He shockingly explains that the monsters that have been hunting the friends each night are a manifestation of Clover's own fears. He cryptically reveals that the masked killer is a common fear, but that the exploding water is a reflection of her self-destructive urges. As the psycho doctor continues to blabber about his experiments, Clover notices a leaking tap with deadly water, and moves his coffee table under it. Dr. Hill then drinks the coffee, not realizing it is contaminated. As a result, he soon begins feeling sick. And then this happens. Clover then quickly takes his keys, and goes to free Megan from the chamber. The girls try to run away, but several Wendigos are after them, and the hourglass is about to reverse. In a desperate attempt, the girls dig their way above ground, just like Melanie had done at the beginning of the movie. However, this time, their friends are waiting and help them get out, just as the hourglass runs out, marking the end of the cursed night. As the sun rises, they collapse on the grass, still shaken but relieved. They then climb into Abe's truck, driving away from the haunted valley, and this is where the movie ends. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.